Oh, I think we got YouTube working now. Happy about that. We got some comments on Facebook. So let's get this running so I can see you, see what you're saying. Good morning, Linda. So glad to have you this morning on. Let's see who else is here. Save and close. Okay. Think we're working here. All right. So this morning we have Linda Napperstick saying good morning. So good morning, Linda, to you. Good morning, Olivia. So happy to have you. And then also James again. We'll get some more people. I'm not sure why YouTube was having some issues today, but we are back and we're going. So it's Wednesday. Some people call this hump day, in the middle of the week, getting over the hump. Old Geico commercial. I know my dad is very consistent in sending us a Geico camel commercial picture thing on Wednesday. It's always good to be excited about doing that. So just making sure, because again, just a few things acting a little different. Okay, we got some more people there on Facebook. So I'm glad to see that working. Let's see, we've got Jeff saying good morning. Good morning to you, Jeff. And also Christy saying good morning, everybody. So good morning to you, Christy. We're still praying for you. We're ready to see the little baby. So I'm sure you are also. So it's super excited about that. It is Wednesday. Just to give everyone an update on what's going on at the church on a Wednesday. So there is an adult class that is here in the West Wing classroom at 7 p.m. That is taught by Pastor Jason, and so that is going on Wednesday. There will be singing in the sanctuary. They're going to be practicing. That's not for us to watch and to disrupt, but them to get ready for Sunday. They're going to be doing that. We will have youth group that is 6th through 12th grade at 6:30 in the tent. So at 6:30 you can drop off the 6th through 12th graders and then pick them up at 8. We get set up and everything out there and getting ready as soon as this is done to go set up for the chapel service. And just excited about the things that are happening. MOPS, if you are part of that, the Mother's Preschool, they're going to be doing something in the tent tomorrow night. So I'm sure you guys will be discussing that and but just throwing that out there that is there also. So just super excited about all the things that are continuing to go on, even on what we call a regular week. There's a lot of things happening, a lot of preparations for upcoming events, planning for what our TNT night looks like, our track and treat, what that looks like this year, with all the changes and trying to just figure that kind of thing out. And obviously it's coming up very close, so just trying to prepare for those things. Chris and Julie Ward do an amazing job every year with setting that up and getting that going. So I'm sure they're going to have some details out soon with what they're hoping to be able to accomplish and how we can help them. And then we continue our series, and we are still Villa on Sunday. So our second sermon in that series. If you haven't caught the first sermon in that series by Pastor RT, you should go check that out. You can find it on YouTube, find it on Facebook. And then earlier this week, we posted some graphics on the Facebook page that you can use in your cover photo to help promote and just kind of make a mark and make a thing and saying, hey, we are still Villa, putting that behind there. I will tell you, this is, there's no special blessing or, craziness that comes along. I know on internet, sometimes you get these things like, if you're unashamed or if you love Jesus, you'll post this and and share this. It's not one of those things. We're not shaming you if you don't want to change your cover photo. You got some beautiful pictures of your family or something else up there. That's okay. Some people like doing it. Some people like changing it. Making it fun and exciting and different. Some people like doing a different types of fun and exciting and different. So. It's out there. If you would like to use it, you can. You can check out my page. You can see what it looks like. And then on the Villa Facebook page, it is there if you would like to download it and use it. So obviously, you don't have to, but if it's something you'd want to do, you can do that. So this morning, I want to look at Luke chapter 16. Luke chapter 16. I got the verse for you this morning. I'm going to put it up here on the screen. And it says, "One who is faithful in a very little is also faithful in much, and one who is dishonest in a very little is also dishonest in much." The aspect of just taking care of the small things. I think our culture has shifted and they have this mindset of don't sweat the small stuff. But I would think that what you see in Scripture and what you see when you look throughout Scripture is it is actually the small things that are the most important. And I think the small things are what actually show your character. It's easy to, I say it's easy, it's easier to put forth the effort and energy and the just what is required when it's something big. When there's a big production or there's a big thing. We have a lot of people you can see that do that in the world, that they'll show up when something's big. And they have this idea, well, I'm just saying it's with the small stuff, I'll put forth all my effort and energy. But the problem is when you get to that kind of concept, you start trying to figure out like what's important, what's not important, what's important enough to put effort into, what's not important enough to put effort into, very relative and everything. So what I think Scripture would teach, and I think the biblical aspect here that what you see is that a faithful person does everything, even the small things, to the best of their ability. This is why Scripture would teach you that even when you're at your job, when you're doing your daily activities, you're doing those to the glory of God. In all things, you're doing to Him. So the very little things, those things that don't seem important, when you are faithful to those things, you are actually showing the faithfulness that you have to God in the bigger things. You can see this throughout Scripture too. There's many people who were giving these kind of ideas, these tasks, and you see them doing the thing, the correct thing in the small spot, and then they get into the opportunities to do things in the big spots. Joseph would be one of these examples, a great example of someone who just did everything that he could. Once he was sold into slavery, doing all of the small things, doing all of the things and being faithful in the little things, and then literally constantly being put over more and more. And you see this example in Matthew. Jesus is talking about talents, and he's given a parable, but he's explaining, and the master says, you've been faithful in a little, so I'm going to give you a lot. And so this principle is not something new, it's not something crazy, but it is something that, believe me, I think that we miss as Christians a lot. I think that we miss the mark because we're only willing to pay attention to the big things. We're not willing to be faithful to the small things. Maybe the small things of showing up to church when you can. The small things of making sure you put in your tithe. The small things of making sure you're praying for one another. The small things of making sure you're sending encouragement to your leaders, to those that are doing things. If you're a leader, to send encouragement to your helpers. These are the things that we would consider small sometimes, but they're huge. Small things as in making sure you're cleaning up after yourself, when you're in areas or in the church and stuff. And again, I know I'm speaking specifically about the church, but this goes throughout everything. When you're faithful in little things in your marriage, when you're faithful in little things in your home, when you're faithful in the little things in your parenting, you will also be faithful in the big things. It's not enough to be faithful, in the really big moments of your kid's life if you're not faithful in the mundane moments of your kid's life. If you're not coming home and excited and spending time with them and doing that type of thing, if you're not daily in your scripture and you're like, yeah, but every Sunday I'm in it and I read a lot, or and you just if it's not faithful in the small aspects. And when there's something really bad, I pray. But what about when it's not really bad, or when it's just a little bad, or maybe when it's all good? Are we still faithful? And I think what Scripture would go to show, and what it does explain to us, is that if we are not faithful in the small things, then God's going to not give us the big things. God's going to withhold some of those big things from us that we could be doing, we could be useful, we could be using, that He's just going to withhold because we're not being faithful in the small things. And it's inaccurate to think that you can be faithful in the big things without be faithful in the small things. It just doesn't happen. We can feign it, we can act it, we can carry it around for a little bit and try to put on a show that we're being faithful in the big things. But if we're not faithful in the small things, we're not really faithful in the big things either. So the challenge that I want to think about today when we look at this is to, again, I know I say this, and I know I probably say it every day, if not very consistently. But these are things that we need to be really honest with ourselves. We need to really take a look and to take inventory and say, am I being faithful in the small things? Are there things that I'm letting go through the cracks? Are there things that I'm not doing that I need to be doing? And because that focus on those aspects, the focus on those little things are what's going to end up reaping these huge rewards and these big things later in life and set us up to be able to do these big things. I tell people, and I see this all the time, where people aren't, they're not the man, or they're not in charge of stuff, and then they get a task and they think, oh, this is a simple task, this is a dumb task, and so they don't pay attention to it, they don't focus it. There's no desire to give them more tasks. Not me, I'm not talking about from a specific thing, but just in general, there's no way that you're going to get more tasks if you can't handle the tasks that you're given, because if you can't handle small ones, how are you going to handle big ones? And God looks at us the same way. We find it, there's a lot of people that I've talked to, and they'll get to a pot and they're like, man, I just don't understand, and nothing's going right, and everything's going wrong, and it just doesn't seem like my prayer life. And I'm like, how is your prayer life normally? What is your scripture reading like normally? Like on a normal day, what do you do? Like if things aren't horribly bad, what do you do? And most of the time, what you find is that they're not reading, they're not praying, they're not doing anything. So when the times get really hard, they don't know what to do. There's no fruit there. There's no roots that have dug in to be able to help them and sustain them through this. And so I do want to challenge you, this morning, be faithful in the little things. Again, we've talked about what that looks like in church, but we talked about that looks like in your life. You need to find the little things. And I would imagine, and I'm included in this, I would imagine that every one of you have some little things that you're letting slip. Some little things that you need to button up, you need to clean up, you need to focus on, you need to make sure that you're putting them in the right position. Maybe you're okay with Bible reading, but your praying is not that great. Maybe you're okay with Bible reading and praying, but you're talking to friends and your community is not that great. Maybe there's some other things in there. And then there are times where you're doing those things correctly. I don't want to make it sound like there's not, and things are just bad, okay? It's not all that. It's not just a do all of these things and this thing's going to be perfect. I mean, Job is a beautiful example of that. So we know of things like that, but I would imagine that most of us have some little things that we need to button up, that we need to clean up, and that we need to focus on so that God can use us later for a few more of the big things. So that's my challenge to you today. One of the coolest things when you're ever reading about us being faithful to God is that we always have the encouragement that regardless of anything, He is faithful to us. And so regardless on whether we are or not, He is to us. And that's an encouragement. So when we get down and we're like, oh, I messed up again, or oh, I forgot again, or oh, this and that, we know that God didn't. God didn't forget. God didn't wake up this morning and be like, oh, Chris had that thing going on and totally spaced it. it doesn't happen like that. He's not surprised when I come to him and I'm like, hey, I need help. He's like, I know, here it is. Here's what's going on. I quoted a song from Lecrae a while back on my Facebook account, and I love it. Is just that the I don't remember the exact wording of it, but the focus of it, the main meat of it was that God's like, yeah, I know you're gonna mess up. I know you're gonna make mistakes. I know you're human. I made you, so I know things. That's why I'm still here. That's why I'm still helping. So it's encouraging to know that. So when we're talking about faithfulness, just remember, be encouraged that God is faithful. We need to work on our faithfulness to Him. So I love you guys. If you have any questions about what's going on at church, reach out to me. Let me know. Talk to you later. Bye.